Good afternoon, everyone. And thank you so much for taking the time to be here. I'm sure when you saw the type of social protection system in Nigeria, you're probably wondering, what is there to talk about? Is there any social protection system in Nigeria? Well, when the first ILO convention was rolled out in 1952, I think countries around the world agreed on some basic standards that would guide social protection, that would be social security standards for the world. And they do things like insurance, you can't hear, and they cover issues like medical care, like sickness benefit, like unemployment benefit, they cover old age benefit, issues like family benefit, maternity benefit, invalidity benefit, that is once you become an invalid, then you should actually have the privilege. That's a basic social security standard that was agreed around the world as far back as 1952. So question is, where are we as a country? How many of those do we have in the country? How functional are they? And if they're not functional, how do we address the situation? Well, I won't say Nigeria is guilty alone. I think around the world, as time progressed, you could find that although there were social security systems, women didn't have as much to cover. Because if you look at medical care, you look at maternity care, family care, these are basic protection services that should guarantee social life and make managing the family, managing the home easier. And so, by the time the Convention on the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women came in 1976, we found that many countries around the world didn't even have services that were tailored towards women. If you look at Nigeria, I'm sure people around the table will talk about it. I will talk about the kind of systems that we have. We have pension. Yes, we do. We have medical care. Yes, we do. We have hospitals. But the question is, do they actually provide social security? Do they give safety to people when they need protection from situations of life, from maternal burdens, from family care, from when they get invalidated? Do we have that in place? And I bet you, for those of you who know, the answer is no. They may be there on paper because we have the social security system in Nigeria, we have the social insurance fund, we have the social security and pension scheme, but to what degree are they functional, are they accessible, are they affordable, and do they transform the lives of the citizens? From the CSW perspective, because that's where I sit right now, the convention makes it obligatory for the government to protect citizens, to uphold their rights, their fundamental rights, to promote it, and to protect them from issues and situations that will deprive them of their fundamental rights as human beings. And so the question is, today, for women, what kind of social do we have in place? Maternal care or maternity care that actually takes care of the woman pre, during pregnancy, through labor and post. It's usually a year before and a year after, because 9 months to go to term. Do we really have that? How functional are they? We know the maternal mortality rates in Nigeria, and I don't actually think we're like number 2 in the world in terms of maternal death. And so, do the system that we have in place, be it a system, how functional is it? How appropriate is it? How affordable is it? And if it's not, what are we doing about it? And I say, what are we doing about it? Because the Convention on the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women is one of the few conventions that allows you a shadow reporting mechanism, which means civil society, you have a platform to engage, to actually dialogue and challenge issues around social protection if they're not functional, if they're not effective, if they're not appropriate, which is what the convention demands. And not only do you have a shadow reporting mechanism, we also have what you call the optional protocol. The optional protocol actually allows you to, when you've exhausted means within your country, to take it up at the international level with the committee as a human rights treaty body. And I was just dialoguing with my friend Raj just after Jani before we came up here, that a lot of people don't know how other countries are utilizing the convention. Very recently, we got one of the land-breaking rulings from the Spanish Supreme Court, awarding a fine or a compensation of $600,000 to a woman for gender-based violence and negligence on the part of the state to protect her during pregnancy, during care, and to prevent intimate partner from, what would you use, the right word to use, from applying or continuing, sustaining violent approaches towards her. So, how many people in Nigeria know about that? How many civil society organizations know about that? Know the procedure to follow and the pathways that will allow you to enjoy Articles 11, Articles 13, and Articles 10. Those are the core articles, Article 10, 13, and 14. These articles are specific on the need for government to provide appropriate, right to the rural areas, not just in the capitals, to the last local government, is there appropriate social care. This government has rolled out what you call the social investment program. But how do you assess the efficacy of that? Is the reach, the impact, the relevance, the appropriateness? How appropriate is it for the people? Were they consulted in the design? In the delivery of it, is it evolving to meet the needs of the people? Because any social security system that doesn't evolve with the social dynamics of a country becomes irrelevant. And I think that's where we are in Nigeria. So we have a social investment fund, we have a social security trust scheme, but they're just money sitting down. Who are the beneficiaries? I think we really need to re-envision what social protection should be in Nigeria, so that civil society fully understands what it is demanding. What is our social protection floor standard in Nigeria? Even the minimum pay. Is the minimum pay a living wage? And if it is not, what are the measures that we need to take to bring it back on track? How do you engage with government? How do you use international human rights institutions, and not just the CEDAW, there are many of them. How do you use GANRI, the Global Association of National Human Rights Institutions? Who set the criteria for human rights institutions set up by government to protect citizens? Government has played its part, but how well is civil society engaging to say that standard is too low, it doesn't meet the global requirements, or it's not meeting our needs, it needs to evolve. And therefore, as we look on many fronts, death benefits, child benefits, we don't even have child care benefits in Nigeria. In most countries, you have child care benefits from 0 to age 5. That any child born in that country gets some benefit and it's paid to the mother. We don't have it. And all of these are directly related to food security, they're related to patriotism, because in a country where nothing has been invested in you, how protective is that country of you? But who places the demand? I think the role of civil society in understanding what the international standards are, what areas should we target, and what's our priority as a country. Medical care is there, we have the NHS, but how functional is the NHS? Does it really provide what is appropriate for the people? And what kind of scope of treatment does it offer? We have the retirement benefit. Is that appropriate? Do people get what is commensurate after 35 years? I was told I was being paid. I asked, really, for 35 years of work, is this what you're paid? What's that going to cover? And so I think as a people, I mean, this year's theme just is calling on us to re-engage and reappraise. Let's look at what we have on ground. It's not zero, but is it effective? Is it functional? Is it appropriate? Is it compliant with current needs that we have as citizens operating in the 21st century with all of the challenges that comes with it? And of course, we have the whole issue of the IDPs. How protected are they? What scheme is there besides, yeah, the victim support fund is there, but how effective is it in offering the battery of protection services that are required? I think I'll stop there at this time. There's a lot more to say, but all I can say is there are global standards, there are global protocols and conventions. One of them is the CSW that requires governments to be accountable, but where there's accountability, there needs to be demand. And for those who are the demand agents, they need to be knowledgeable about the spectrum of issues that they have a right on, and they can make a demand on. Thank you.
Speaking of social protection systems for women, I'm going to speak today about women's participation in politics. Who better to design and fight for social protection systems for women than the women themselves? I hope to illustrate today how American female participation in politics has created hope for gains in the access of social protections, not just for women, but for everyone. Cindy Simon Rosenthal wrote in her 2002 book, Women Transforming Congress, that social identity is an influential factor on legislative behavior, and women's social identity strongly impacts their dedication to pursue policies that benefit women. This is an important driving force of women's empowerment. Policy research corroborates this claim that women's representation in elected office promotes the creation of women-friendly policies and policies that benefit other members of society, such as low-income families. For example, Garrity et al. Found in 2007 that women are more likely to sponsor and support legislation that supports gender equity, child care, minimum wage increases, and expansions of the food stamp program in the U.S. Let's examine female political participation in the U.S. 2018 has been called the Year of the Woman. Interestingly enough, 1992 was also marked the Year of the Woman. In both years, the context was similar. In both cases, you had old lawmakers retiring or being pushed out, opening new seats and creating opportunity for women to run for office. And tired of the injustice and lack of action against sexual assault claims, women began to make their voices heard. The Me Too movement is a great example of this. The Me Too movement began in 2006 to assist survivors of sexual violence, particularly women of color from low socioeconomic status communities. The movement gained traction when actress Alyssa Milano shared her story on Twitter with the #MeToo hashtag. This was happening in October of 2017 as accusations against very influential men were being made. Women around the world in solidarity used the hashtag to share their stories, resulting in many powerful men being held accountable for their actions. There's one difference between the 2 years that I would like to point out. Now we have more civic infrastructure, providing training programs for women. SheShouldRun.org is a great example of this in the US. SheShouldRun.org is a nonpartisan nonprofit started in 2011 that helps women run for office by building a candidates network and providing training. UN Women has also offered similar training programs for women in Nigeria. While there were some training programs like these in 1992, they were mostly donation-based super PACs and heavily partisan. Now women from all backgrounds can gain support for the political candidacy. Over the years, women have become increasingly involved in American politics. 105 women served in Congress in 2017, 110 served in 2018, and today 127 American women serve in Congress in 2019. And how did we reach these milestones? Firstly, women raised their voices against sexual misconduct. Again, the Me Too movement acts as a catalyst for making men in office accountable. It is also important to note that men are now acknowledging the problems within male culture, and we're supporting these women, which I believe made a huge difference. Secondly, there was an increase in women at the polls. This was caused by a surge in activism. Women in the US were taking advantage of a more active social network. And while it wouldn't be incorrect to interpret this as a social media network, as Twitter and Facebook are very influential, this mostly refers to the fact that women tend to have strong social support groups. Women come together, they made donations, participated in letter-writing campaigns, and they marched in the streets. But getting into office and sponsoring bills is not enough. These bills must get passed in order to affect actual change in society. Although women are generally just as successful as men in passing legislation, gender bias tends to thwart bills that support women, children, and social welfare policies. So it seems we have overcome one hurdle in the US only to be met with one more. We are one step closer to ensuring that there are federal and state policies to protect women and children and increase social protection programs, but our current challenge in the U.S. will be to combat gender bias in the political sphere. But we are here to talk about the challenges that Nigerian women face. So what can be done for Nigerian women in regards to access to social protection systems? I myself cannot speak for Nigerian women, but I can provide recommendations based on our experience in the U.S. Recommendations that may alleviate the exclusion of girls and women from the political processes that assure provisions for social protection systems. The first recommendation: educate youth, especially young girls, about politics and encourage activism. 59% of the electorate in the U.S. is made up of Generation X, millennials, and post-millennials. If you look at our current Congress in the United States, many of the women elected to Congress are very young, and they have fresh ideas for legislation. The second recommendation: political participation. Galvanize civil society to provide services to increase political participation by supporting organizations and entities that provide training services for women to get into office. I hope I have made it clear how important political participation is in securing access to social protection systems. We have made extraordinary strides here in the United States, but the next step, as the U.S. is currently learning, is ensuring that this is more than mere pretense. That we must ensure that women truly have a seat at the table and that they are able to pass laws that benefit society. Thank you.
My beat is actually on women's health rights, the challenges, and then some policies that we have on board that I'll be talking about. So I want to take us to some of the conventions, the treaties, that we have signed as a nation or globally. Okay, we have the UN General Assembly, that actually recognizes health as a fundamental right, okay, for everybody. Okay, we also have Article 6 of the International Convention on Civil and Political Rights that affirm the sacrosanct nature of life, providing that no one may be arbitrarily deprived of it. So on the African continent, we have Article 4 of the African Charter on human and people's rights that protect life, particularly mentioning women of reproductive age. Okay, we also have this groundbreaking Maputo Protocol, which is considered as one of the most progressive efforts on African women's health. In Article 4, you see it say that state parties should establish and strengthen existing prenatal, delivery, and postnatal health and nutritional services for women during pregnancy while they are breastfeeding. So we have all these, provisions. Even Nigeria is also signatory to all these protocols. In fact, we have the African Health Strategy 2007 to 2015, which is also known as the Abuja Declaration, which, of course, Nigeria is signatory to. Okay, but what is the situation on ground? We have all these beautiful documents that we have all, agreed and signed up to protect women's health and rights, to support women. We even have a National Health Act that up till today they are still paying lip service to. There are so many good provisions, in the Health Act that if they are actually, paying attention to it, to the implementation, maybe by now I wouldn't be talking about the health bit. But unfortunately, the case is different. So, so talking about maternal health situation in Nigeria, I'm going to refer us to a publication, a joint publication actually, by WHO, World Bank, UNICEF, that actually estimates that Nigeria has 58,000 maternal deaths. That is the death of women during childbirth, or maybe after delivery, complications and all that come with it. Okay, so this accounts for 19% of the global maternal deaths. So if you put it differently, we have about 800 women that die in every 100,000 live births, given birth. These are not just figures, these are human beings, that are losing their lives while bringing lives into this world. Then, according to the same report, it's said that northeastern part of the country has the highest maternal mortality rates compared to the other regions, with about 1,590 deaths per 100,000 live births. It's actually a lot, okay? It's a lot of numbers. If you look at it as numbers, it doesn't really mean much. But if you talk about one death of a human being, then you know that if you're talking about 58,000, you're talking about 800 women, you're talking about 1,549, it is a lot of death, going on, in the country, just because a woman is about to bring life, on board. We also have, in fact, let me give you a tip. The co-chair of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, that is Bill Gates, actually said in March last year, March 2018, that Nigeria, and I quote, "Nigeria is one of the most dangerous places to give birth in the world, and the fourth country with the worst indices of maternal mortality, ahead of Sierra Leone, Central African Republic, and Chad." That isn't good news. We shouldn't be having this kind of thing, coming up, even in the light of the Sustainable Development Goals, which aims at reducing the global maternal mortality to below 79, deaths per 100,000 live births. Remember, our own is about 800. In fact, it's about 814, women dying out of every 100,000 live births. That is not encouraging. So the question is, has there been any policy, intervention? Has the government been doing much? Oh yes, yeah, the government has done, quite substantial enough. But I don't think, in my own opinion, that those policies are actually yielding, bearing the kind of fruits that we expect. We have the establishment of the National Primary Healthcare Development Agency, which is mandated to establish, in fact, all the states in Nigeria must have the National Primary Healthcare Development Agency for it to be able to access the 1% provision of the CER, that's the Consolidated Revenue Funds in the National Health Act. We have the Basic Healthcare Provision Funds, which is available only on paper. Now, in fact, I tell you this evening that the 2018 budget of the appropriations for 2018 in Nigeria actually, for the first time, mentioned these basic healthcare provision funds. And all of us within the health space were very excited that finally something is happening, but unfortunately it was never implemented. So 2018 is gone, we have 2019 now, and we are even begging that they bring it back, in this year's appropriation, and we are praying and begging, hoping that they would implement the basic health care provision fund. Okay, so we also have the maternal, newborn, and child health program. We have the midwifery service scheme. We have the newborn and child health week. We have the free maternal, newborn, and child health, services. We have the scale-up nutrition. We have the policy on free family planning, commodities in public. We have all these beautiful policies, as I said. But the big question is, how effective are they? How many Nigerians are even aware that we have them? Okay? How many women in the rural areas are accessing these, services? So going forward, we of course, those are already challenges. But then also among the challenges are the corrupt practices of the political class, who hijack the money meant for health services, for the people, for personal aggrandizement. I mean, elections have gone and come and gone, and a lot of money exchanged hands. Only God knows where all those monies were coming from, okay? Because, I mean, if government is employing you, you shouldn't have that kind of money to be throwing about, Okay, but these are monies that are actually meant for the people that some people are misappropriating. Thanks so much.
Okay, a few comments there. 800 death of health professionals. I would challenge that. Nigeria has a huge amount of human resources. We don't lack human resources in Nigeria, so we don't have a death of health professionals. I think there are other issues with health professionals where they are not in the places where they are required to be. A lot of health professionals have left Nigeria for different reasons, but that we don't have health professionals is not true. We have, in actual numbers, we have more health professionals in Africa than any single country in the world. So we need to interrogate what's happening to the health sector. So I will go to this side, sister. You can see the time here. I'm going to be strict from now on. I'm going to be 5 minutes, and because you're a great sister, when I start, you will stop.
We know that it is closely linked to gender inequality, because when we talk of social security, we think more of women. And it is, since it's a matter of human rights, we have it in the Article 22 of the Universal Declaration on Human Rights. It behoves on governments to take care of their citizens because it is their responsibility. Improving national social protection system for women should be treated as a major issue. It will interest you that Nigeria is running 3 tiers of government. In the past dispensation, we had some social securities put in place by the previous government. We had some of them. We had the Better Life for Women in Nigeria. We had a few of them. But the problem is that when that government moves, the program dies. The continuity is not usually there. But in some states, as we talk now, like the present president has something that he is doing. We have the youth, Teach Nigeria something, we have the youth empowerment. Those are some of the things that are there now. But the question is, how effective are these programs? Are there legal backings for these programs so that if the current government is not there, they will continue? Do we have system in place that is protecting some of these programs? Those are some of the issues we are looking at. Because it is a problem when we don't have something to back those laudable programs coming from a particular government. Some of the challenges that are making the social protection system not working is the patriarchal state of our country. Because we are very patriarchal in nature, it is difficult for certain things to work out for women. Because social security, yes, is for everybody, but you know that women's problems are very peculiar, especially in the rural areas. As somebody has mentioned the maternal problems, you can know that that is solely associated with women. Sometimes when you talk about poverty, that is economic. It is also on the side of women. And so, in the rural areas, there are kind of blocks that are making these things not to work. Culture is there, religion is there, tradition is there. There are so many things there that are not helping this system to work. And so, in JDPC, Ijebu-Ode, they have put some structures in place. They have the economic scheme they are running for women. About 100,000 women have benefited from that. Why they put that in place is, one, to address the economic system of this problem, the economic side of it. Not only that, they also realize that it is difficult for women to get financial support, especially when they have to take loans from the bank. It's difficult for them. So JDPC set up a system where they are offering these services for women, so that through that program, most women can access financial support. They also have a literacy program where they teach the illiterate women how to, basic reading and writing and other literacy skills that will help them to live a worthwhile life as citizens of Nigeria. So thank you very much.
Now, I'm going to be talking about women in decision making, the case of Kogi State. Now that we don't have much time, I'll just skip. But I'll begin with a story. Experience sharing is one of CWSI's methodology of finding facts, learning lessons, and impacting knowledge. In one of such forums held in Ugoja, a female participant from Yala community in the North Senatorial District narrated that in Yala community, women don't usually own land, but may be given temporary possession of a parcel of land either by their husbands or kinsmen to enable women engage in farming activities for personal gain. She explained that she had temporary possession of such a land and that in the preceding farming season, she planted cocoyam and was very happy with her produce. She decided to invite her husband to see and celebrate her bountiful harvest. Her husband honored her invitation and accompanied her to the farm. Upon seeing the produce, he remarked, "Congratulations, my beloved. It is indeed a plentiful harvest of cocoyam, for which you deserve great commendation for the hard work and dedication that produced this impressive yield. However, it remains a harvest of cocoyam. Comparatively, my meager harvest of yam is financially worth a lot more than your bumper harvest of cocoyam." The narrator said that her husband's sarcasm of her farm's economic worth was demoralizing but painfully true. It was a resonance of the sad reality of the status of the female folk in her community who are culturally confined and prohibited from farming crops designated to be of male reserve. What it means is that for me, I have to live with her. Women are excluded from the table where decisions are made and taken for them. So they only accept what is given to them. And that is why, if you look at it, the major area of concern for me with working with grassroots women is that in decision making, our experience has shown that with women and men over the years is the exclusion of women in decision making. When a group is marginalized and excluded from the table where decisions are made and taken on their behalf, the group is left with no choice but to take what is given. This is the story of the Nigerian woman. Let us look at the government of our day. At the legislature, we have 6 women out of 109 men, out of 109 senators. And then we have 15 women out of 360 in the House. So you can see that the voices of women is already, or the voice of women is already drowned. At the executive, there are 4 women and 33 men. At the judiciary, of the 16 judges of the Supreme Court, only 3 are women. Then you have the traditional rulers. It's like a taboo to have women in the traditional council. And then, of course, religion, which has been mentioned before. Between 1999 and 2015, men held 3,090 political posts at the federal level, and women 168. So what happened in Kogi State is that the situation we tried to change in Kogi State is the gross underrepresentation of women in governance and decision making. Kogi women face huge challenges in entering into politics and occupying leadership positions, both at the civil and traditional levels of governance, as a result of gender bias, restrictions, and exclusion. I have the data here, but we are not going to look into that for lack of time. Now, what are the challenges for me? 1, exclusion of women from decision making. Women cannot go into politics. The last election we just had, there were some women who dared. Of course, they had to pay dearly for it. Then you have women's lack of access to equal agricultural opportunity. Then you have 3, the economic and financial empowerment, then the right to participate in politics. Now, what have we done?
Sister.
We try to get women to do as much, to dare and to try. We encourage them. But the solutions for me, if I have to speak all that we've tried to do, is to build up the capacity of these women and to help them to try. Now the elections have come and gone. 11 women picked up the party tickets, but only 4 made it. And out of these 4, one of them who made it is having a running battle because her father's house has been burnt, one of her campaign managers killed, and so she's just there. She's still fighting, but the mandate has been taken from her. So that's the situation of women. And if women are not there in this, where decisions are made for them, then we cannot grow. There's nothing we can do for ourselves. So for us, the solutions for me, one, is that we as women cannot continue to remain passive or marginalized, even where this is being forced on us. 2, there is need for more women. There is the need more than ever before to empower women to participate in politics with the support of men in their communities in order to keep the tempo growing. 3, the common experience is that most women share is a passive and subordinate one. There is need for mentoring between women who are professionals and the younger generations. Thank you.
For the purpose of this discussion, I'm going to concentrate on the hard laws around female genital mutilation in Southeast Nigeria. Female genital mutilation, FGM, is a very big challenge. It's a very big reproductive health in Nigeria, especially in the Southeast. So I'm going to concentrate for the purpose of this discussion, I'm going to concentrate in the Southeast. And one of the challenges around FGM is that of tradition. You see, during intervention in the communities, we have noticed that people see FGM as a way of life. They see it as something that has been there for a long period of time, as something their forefathers have been practicing, and that they wouldn't be the one to stop it. And it's been a very big challenge. Yes, because of our intervention, we've been able to change that mindset, but that mindset is still there. We still have it as a very big challenge. And there's also that of stigmatization, where parents that refuse to cut their children are stigmatized. We have this case where a woman traveled all the way from the southwest, Lagos State, to the southeast to cut her child without the consent of her husband because she doesn't want to be stigmatized. At the end of the day, the 8-year-old child, after being cut, bled and died.
So now should we answer to her husband?
There's also that of economic benefits. During the ceremonies, which is usually big, depending on the communities and the states, they use it as an opportunity. Friends and well-wishers, send gifts to parents of the person that is being cut. So when we interact with them during our interventions, they tell us that if they do not cut their child, that the gifts that they will have received during the ceremony, it means they will not get it. So what we do is to tell them, go ahead with the ceremony, get the girls, the women to dance, be part of it, but please do not cut them. Do not cut them because it is a very big harm on their life. There's also that of medicalization, where health workers that are supposed to know better also engage in the practice of FGM. These are some people that are supposed to protect the women and the children. But they think because they do it in a neat environment, because they sterilize the equipment, that it is okay for them. But in the course of our intervention, because we also work with UNFPA, in the course of our intervention, we've been able to engage with them, train them, discuss with them to know that no matter the environment, no matter how neat the environment is, it is a danger to the health of the woman and they should stop it. They've also been, we've also told them, because we have also engaged the wife of some of the governors, and we told them that any health worker caught in the act, the certificate will be withdrawn. This has made them to refrain from it, but we notice that some of them go secretly to do it because of the money they get from it. There's that of non-implementation of laws against female genital mutilation. In the Southeast, there are laws against female genital mutilation. Not all the states, but the states that has laws against female genital mutilation, we have noticed that the laws are just there. It's not being implemented. It's not being enforced. So we have engaged with the judicial officers and also the law enforcement agencies to tell them, let them know the risk associated with female genital mutilation and the need for them to enforce those laws. Incidentally, again, there's something I need to point out here. You will imagine that despite the level of education of especially the judicial officers, you will think that they will know that female genital mutilation is wrong. But during our interaction with them, it was difficult for us to change their mindset because they keep saying that it is something that has been there for a long period of time and that they will continue with it. But we have succeeded to an extent to get them to stop that act. But it's still a big challenge because most of them do not enforce the law. There's also the right of passage to womanhood. In most of the states in Southeast Nigeria, any woman that is not caught is not a complete woman, and you will not be married. You will only be married and suitors will start coming to you when you are caught. So we have told them again, just like I said earlier, go ahead with the ceremonies. Get the women, the girls, to dance. Be part of it, but please do not hurt the women because it endangers their life. And there's also that of mutilating pregnant women at the point of delivery. You can imagine a woman that is pregnant, that is at the point of delivery, going through a big pain, and the TBAs also caught them. Unfortunately, most of these women don't survive because they bleed to death. And then there's this wrong belief that any woman that is not caught childbirth will be difficult for that person. And then any woman that is not caught will be promiscuous. And we all know that all these things are just misconception, they are not correct. And there's ignorance. Most of them practice FGM because they are not aware of the dangers associated with the practice. But because of our intervention, we've been able to change that mindset, we've been able to get them to drop it. But you know, it's true that CSW is working with several other NGOs, but we have not been able to cover all the states, especially states that has high prevalence. And we have also, as part of our method to ensure that FGM is we end it in the states, we train people that are called champions to end female genital mutilation that conduct house-to-house discussion. Thank you so much.
Rather than complain about women not owning land, let's look at how women can own land. And these are some areas that we can look at. Grassroots women. You know, it's very painful when we talk about grassroots women not being powerful. Grassroots women in Nigeria that I know are the most powerful women. We have structures like the Umuna. The Umuna is such a powerful structure. It's so powerful. We can use that structure to improve the lot of women, rather than use the Umuna to force inheritance rights. Because they are very powerful women, and they push to ensure that women go through horrendous inheritance rights. So we can use them positively. We have the CWO in church. Are you saying that group of women are not powerful? They talk to the parish council and they dictate what happens to the parish council. So we have very powerful women. We have in the East, we have August meetings. That's a really powerful platform. What I see is we are not harnessing the power of women, and what we are doing is complain. There are powerful women in this room. And if you say the women in this room just come together and say, we want to bring this down, it will come down. Nigeria. Let's use the power that we have. We have Nigerian women sitting down in most powerful places. The Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations is in Nigeria.
And she's a woman. She's so powerful. If she dictates that this is what is going to happen in the UN, it will happen. Are we using her? As we have come here to CSW, have the Nigerian contingent asked for a meeting with Amina Mohammed to place at her table, these are the kinds of things we want. We are not using the platform that we have. So rather than saying that grassroots women are not powerful, we are powerful, and we just need to harness that. I'll just stop there and open the floor for questions, discussions. The discussions should be forward-looking, please. Please, go ahead, introduce yourself.
My name is Rotimi Ajayi. I'm coming from Osun State in Nigeria, and I represent the Yoruba Development Initiative, which is an NGO presented by the government. Now, I'm very impressed with the submissions of the panelists, but I want to advise us to look at the issues that affect the challenges to social protection in Nigeria. We tend to be national.
Okay, they said we want to hear your voice. Please use the mic. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We tend to be national in our focus, in which case we want things to be done from Abuja all the way to the states. But we don't look at the structure of the country. From my experience, I've worked at Abuja in almost any office that matters in that country. And now I'm in the state. And I've realized that Abuja cannot actually cause a fundamental change for Nigeria unless we go to the states. So you need to empower all the states, chapters, outlets, platform of women organizations, particularly the community-based organizations for women. When you talk about participation in politics, it's not as if the women are not participating in politics. But most of the time, they tend to dwell more on religion. You have larger percentage of women in religious organizations in the rural areas than men. They tend to leave it to men. They are the few women that participate, they demonize them, they stigmatize them. There is a need for all the women organizations, the NGOs, to do something at the rural areas in terms of restructuring the country, so that more women will get access to decision-making points and the ability to change the fundamentals that inhibit against social protection.
Okay.
Now, talking about FGM, I hope I'm still
Okay, I'll just allow you to talk about FGM and then we'll move.
Yeah, talking about FGM, it is a major issue in Osun State, just like my sister was talking about. Now, what I see as solution to it is for us to collectively make available alternative platform for those who engage in the court. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, what's the mic close to you?
I wish to congratulate sisters for this very wonderful initiative for bringing us together to address this issue. My own comment is that...
Would you want to say your name now?
Okay, Lady Justina Okogun. I promote positive core values.
Okay.
Yeah. I want to think there should be a paradigm shift. Because often, what we orchestrate and celebrate and talk about is about the negatives. I believe we should change the narratives.
Yep.
Rather than come here talk about mutilation, what about those who are not mutilated? Talk about trafficked ladies, what about those that are not trafficked? Women impoverished, what about women who have achieved? I believe once in a while, we should start to celebrate our achievements. That will encourage the totality of the people, even foreigners. Because now they bring money, all we like to talk about is about abortion, about poverty, about war. But, even that sort of thing will scare people away. But when we bring in the positive aspect, that we have a huge percentage of them. That is not mentioned. Like the lady you just mentioned. Who celebrated? Nobody. Who mentions her? Who has invited her to an event? And she encouraged to support us. So I believe let's change this narrative.
Thank you, ma'am.
Let's start to look at the positive aspects
Thank you.
of our achievements.
Thank you.
And God in His mercy, those who are walking and praying,
See them.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Very inspirational.
I'm going into controversy over what you just said, but let me just first make my point. Then, if I have 1 minute, I can just, say something. For me, as an advocate, I think all the things that we've said here, we have to interrogate the social protection policy that we have currently, in Nigeria. And any social protection policy must be progressive enough to aim at reducing poverty. That's one. Number two, it must. I'm saying that we have to first and foremost advocate for progressive social policy protection that will aim at first reducing poverty, empowering vulnerable groups to have economic base. Number three is to also ensure that there's a coordination in what is happening, because most times you have all sorts of things that is not coordinated and that is not making us to achieve what we want to achieve. We have to ensure that there's a proper synergy, and we have to ensure that there's a decent employment for women, because the focus is really about women. We also have to ensure that there's a human capital development that will ensure and protect dignity of life. We have to also advocate, the policy must also aim at providing social welfare and improve food security as well as nutrition. Choma has spoken about the nutrition issue. We thought sometimes people underestimate some of this issue, but you cannot talk about social protection without really dealing with this. Right now we have millions of Nigerians facing problems of insurgency, and we have no policy dealing with internally displaced persons in Nigeria. Look, there's so much that we need to do. It's just that we need to put all this and advocate, appropriate legislative or policy framework that will ensure and guarantee protection of vulnerable groups, which of course, women, disabled and aged people. A lot of people in Nigeria, we don't have policy for even aged, people. Now, lastly, just to respond to Madam, I think politics is not about electoral politics all the time. You can be in politics. In fact, what you are doing is already politics. Because me as a student of politics, I understand politics is really what you want, how you go about it. It doesn't mean you must be, in the electoral politics. You can be in the party. And let me tell you, the women, yes, you may think that they have not been defrauded. They have been defrauded. Where will they spend money to pay 40 million to buy forms to contest for election?
Is that the law in Nigeria?
Yes, that is the party. The party, I'm talking about the party. Yes, you have to pay 40 million naira to buy presidential forms for the particular party.
Okay.
I'm saying that what we should be advocating is to ensure, because we know there's no equal fitting. What we should do is to ensure that political parties actually have policy that will encourage women to participate, in politics. Otherwise, if you just leave it and you think that women, they are not, because they didn't push, what would they get? Some of the women didn't have the minds, just like you said, to kill people. Some of these politicians, part of the agenda is to ensure that you have enough money to pay for somebody to be killed. Some people who are God-bearing God, they will not go and give money to kill people, or they will go and hire talks to come and be doing all sorts of things. I think, we need to also advocate for more decency in the electoral politics in Nigeria for you and I and other people who want to aspire to participate. Otherwise, if it is the way it is, it will be difficult for people to go and be in the electoral politics where people will be killed.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Right now, there's no social protection policy in Nigeria. So which policy are you referring to?
No, there's a draft.
But there's no policy.
Yeah,
that is not a policy.
That we should advocate for it to be
right.
Exactly.
So what I'm saying is right now there is no policy. So if you are saying let's engage in the policy making process, because we are civil society here, let's talk to ourselves. When you say law of insurgency, yes. Okay, so what are we going to do? All those, your recommendations are correct and agreed. But who are we speaking to? Are you going to address the law of insurgency?
We're going to advocate to
policymakers,
legislators, because we cannot do it by ourselves.
Indeed.
But we have to advocate to those people who have the power to do that.
Yeah, so what I'm saying is civil society here should be saying, in my view, let's come together after now and say these are the issues that are pertinent to social protection in Nigeria. How can we now begin that advocacy? And who are you doing the advocacy to? I'm sure if I ask people around here, they don't even know where that policy sits. You might know, but how many people know? So when you are talking about information, that's the information that should be shared in a forum like this, so that when you go back to Nigeria, you know you can't do anything sitting down in New York. This is New York, it's an event. But is it an event that we want? We want to make transformative change. So we want people to be angry enough to say, when we get back, this is what we are going to do, 1, 2, 3. Even if you cannot do it across Nigeria, maybe you want to decide, let's start with the Southeast, I don't know. But I want us to be forward-looking in saying, what are the solutions that we are preferring coming out of this meeting, instead of just talking about issues and challenges, because we want to also look at solutions. It's interesting to know, I don't live in Nigeria, but it's interesting to know that to pick a party ticket is 40 million naira.
Yes.
Where is civil society voice on that? I haven't, you spoke, maybe you've spoken in the small room like this. The Nigeria that I know.
I don't think it's a law, I think it's more
That's fine. Excuse me, one floor. Excuse me, I've not given you the mic yet. I've not given you the mic yet because I followed the Nigeria politics very keenly, and I did see before the elections that people were calling for women not to pay 40 million naira, for example. So it must have been. No, I said I didn't see.
And my point was, when I came in, I was listening to the health presentation and a few other presentations, and I quickly said the reason why some of us came here was to look at the strategies to get information. And one of the things I was looking out for was the fact that I wanted to hear about the Nigerian National Strategic Health Development Plan, and the fact that we now have a basic healthcare provision fund, which we have $10 million donated by Bill and Melinda Gates, and Dangote was asked to also raise another $10 million in addition to it, and they are to fund 5 basic healthcare health services. And now the monies are not going through the state's health services, but are now going directly to the primary healthcare services. But then, we know that it is being implemented in phases. It is for us to go back home and find out from our ministries of health how or is our state already implementing, and begin to monitor how these monies are implemented or how these services are implemented. Because it was to take care of antenatal, take care of HIV/AIDS, take care of malaria, take care of tuberculosis, and all of these services were to be provided free of charge according to the framework and according to how these monies are dispersed. If my state is benefiting from it or has already started implementation, because we were told by the Minister of Health in January that monies have been dispersed to like 14 states because it's going to be done in batches. Is my state part of it? Is it being implemented? I need to find out from the Minister of Health, why are women still paying for antenatal if they are supposed to be provided these services? These are the kinds of things that I expected to hear. Secondly, our presentations are like Nigeria is a homogeneous entity. Where I come from, the community I stay, the female is the head of that community, it's the chief. But how many of us are beginning to project this, to see that these things exist for us to be able to buy into it? We have an obesity of laws, but we also do know that some of these laws are implemented to a certain extent. Are we bringing that out for others to learn how this is being implemented? What are the challenges? How we can also duplicate these kinds of strategies in our states? For me, these are the kinds of things I came here to hear. But we seem to be saying the same thing, challenges and crying over it, and nothing is happening. We have been doing this over and over. Let us begin to change the narrative and talk of the things that have worked. I come from a matrilineal community where land is given to women, because it is in reaction to the fact that the paternal society doesn't give land to women, and the matrilineal came up and said they can give land to me, but they will not give it to my brother. So if I need to get land, my brother needs to get land, I have to collect it and give it to him. Reason being that my children have to benefit from that land, but he is going to get married to another woman, and if that land is given to him, it will go to another children. So these things exist, but how much of it is told in forums so that people begin to know that these things are existing, so that people learn from it, and let's not start every time we're talking about the challenges and nobody's learning anything from it.
Thank you very much, and thank you for focusing the discussions.
I want to congratulate all of you for your presentation this afternoon. For many people, like those who don't live Nigeria anymore, don't live in Nigeria anymore, they would have learned quite a bit. For others, they will now go and carry out research and see all the things we've heard, which one is working, which one is not working, are there any changes, and so forth. But since time is short, I just want to support the idea of encouraging women by using our traditional groups like Owada and Omunna, and those who organize the August meeting, because they are very powerful and they can achieve a lot. If we cannot win election through the ballot box, we can do it the way the Aba Women's Riot managed to do it and succeeded. In fact, let me tell you a very short story. During the Babangida regime, there was a lady in Okwele who won election as the chairman of the local government. And the whole community said, no way, a woman cannot be chairman. What was the reason? She cannot break the cola. Of all things, how can a woman break the cola? So they so insisted and wanted to, destroy everything. But Mrs. Babangida, who was in charge at the time of the Better Life program, organized women because the case was going to be heard in Port Harcourt. So she organized women in the eastern part of the country to go to the court the day that case was to be heard in Better Life uniform, and they flooded the whole court. At the end of the day, the judge returned the seat to the woman, and she served as the chairman of that council for 4 years, I think, before. So women can achieve quite a lot, but we have to find ways of doing it.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, ma'am.
I just wanted to comment quickly on something that you said that resonated with me and bring it back from, it's not about politics. It's about will writing. A lot of times it's this stigma in Nigeria. It's something that is so okay, but it's still there today. Where people think that writing wills mean that they're going to die. And something that we as a society need to look into, how do we educate our men on knowing, especially men in the rural areas, that you can pass, as you said, pass land to your daughters and in writing state what your intentions are. So you can minimize the chaos that happens after you pass. So that's something that I think forward-looking, that's something that we can add to a charge that we can take on, because it's so old, but it's still happening.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Why is it that the women cannot write out? And the husband will know that you have written your will, even if it's your little jewelry, your little whatever you have, and you write your will. You set the tone, and I don't see why, if you write your own will, somebody beside you will think you are wishing that other person dead.
Thank you. Who speaks loudest gets the day. That's the way we have been socialized. So thank you so much. I just want to reiterate that many of us are very proud Nigerians. Some of us live in the diaspora. And when we read about what Nigerians are speaking about Nigeria, it's very painful. Because for some of us who have lived in other countries in Africa, you know that we are blessed. If you see what happens in other countries, you would not believe it. So sometimes, like Mrs. Okogu says, let's celebrate ourselves. Let's celebrate ourselves as women. Let's celebrate ourselves as Nigerians. Yes, we have challenges, but our challenges cannot be bigger than our successes. Yes, we have issues. That we have a Nigerian election, that we are not in war today is a success. If it was another country, if you know what happened in Kenya in 2013 or in 2007, I don't know, and where people were hacking off people's heads. You know, you don't see this in the press. Yeah, because Nigeria is a popular and we are troublesome, so anything bad Nigeria goes into the press. But we cannot be part of those that are speaking bad about such a beloved country. I am so proud of my green passport. Everywhere I go, I'm a very proud Nigerian, and I think all of us need to be proud because we don't have any other country, my sisters. We have nowhere to go. So anywhere, east or west, by the time I finish all the running around I'm doing, I'm coming back home. And I'm coming back home to develop that country because that's where my children are going to grow old. So can we claim our country? Can we work together to make it better? But let's claim it. No, I'm closing. Close. Let's close on a good note. Nigeria is good. It is successful. We are proud. Thank you very much for listening.